of course, we're just counting down the hours to that meeting anticipated at the White House later on today. Let's get you a sense of what else we know so far. Bringing our international news editor, Sophie Mokoena, with us in our studios here in Auckland Park. There are several moving parts, Sophie, and sometimes it feels like they're moving quite fast, but there's also talks, reports in some instances of private citizens who are likely to be part of these meetings.
Well, you know that during the state visit, let's start with the state visit, you have both government officials and also private citizens. In most cases, the private citizens will be your labor and your business, because on the margin of the meeting and the state visit, you will have a program where business will engage and the leaders of those respective countries will engage business. Because as you heard in that clip, South Africa wants to focus more on trade and investment. Normally, that will be the role of your private citizens. They are always there during state visit. Whether Ramaphosa is hosting a head of state or Ramaphosa is traveling, you have these people. It depends in terms of availability. There are those people who will always make themselves available to be part of that state visit. There are people who are not interested to be part of the visit because they are private business, they are well established, and therefore it doesn't matter for them. But when we started in 1994, we saw many business people, even big ones, accompanying Mandela, at times big, and it faded and faded and faded in terms of interest. During the working visit, you may have a similar situation, even though you have small team. You might have strategic citizens for specific reasons. So we are told that Johan Rupert is there, Annie Els, and Retief Goosen. Now, let's talk about Retief Goosen and Annie Els. You would recall when the president of Ukraine was in the country, I pointed out that I was told that during the telephone conversation with President Ramaphosa ahead of that meeting, Donald Trump himself said the president must bring along the golfers. At that time, the request was Annie Els and Gary Player. He, Donald Trump, invited them. But we are told Gary Player is not available, he's in Japan, but also the family feels that he's quite senior, traveling up and down, doesn't work. And therefore, I think that's why Retief Goosen, because Trump is a golfer. You have Johan Rupert. We know, we've been told that Johan Rupert is a friend to Trump or has access to Trump. He has been facilitating to push that South Africa is able to engage Trump when Trump was angry and not willing to engage. Therefore, I think he is there to give a perspective from a white citizen in terms of this notion that Afrikaners are being marginalized and these problematic legislations that we saw some parties challenging, such as the DA. And therefore, I am not surprised that Rupert is there because we know he has access to Donald Trump. What is important is for the government not to allow a situation where business or interest parties set the tone and push decisions. There is absolutely nothing wrong. Ayanda Nyati going and being part of that, talking about exchange program as it relates to broadcasting. I'm just making an example. But at the end of the day, government must be independent in decision making and they must follow the law, and those laws are being adopted by Parliament. You cannot go to Washington and change the law. You have to come back and consult the legislature. If the legislature approves, then you can make changes. Therefore, I think we do have as a country views in terms of individuals based on our historic perspective, and people have a right to ask hard questions about the private citizens. What government must do is to explain why these private citizens who are South Africans, and therefore, so that South Africans are not left in the dark in terms of the role of these people.
Absolutely, especially because there's already been perceptions at the very least that one of the individuals, for example, is the de facto leader of the country, so-called making the shots in places and rooms that we can't see. So that explanation is crucial. But you speak about the law. Elon Musk, of course, comes up insofar as that is concerned, and the controversy around Starlink being able to operate in South Africa. We know that the laws in this country require that a foreign-based company allows that there be some kind of, let's call it a stake insofar as the operations are, if they want to operate in South Africa. But reports now emerging that, in fact, Elon Musk is engaging the government. What do we know about that and the likelihood that he'll actually be in Washington?
Elon Musk's engagement with the South African government didn't start today. It started a long time ago because he wants to bring Starlink on the continent. His company has been approaching different governments on the continent. Let's start there. His business, and he's operating in many countries. Now, we know that at some point in time last year when the president was at the UN during the General Assembly, he did meet Elon Musk. That is why we have those visuals. They were discussing that. The issue here is that Elon Musk doesn't want to comply with the laws of the country as it relates to the redress, the BEE. It is the law. It is not a government decision. It is the law of the country. To change that, you have to go back to the legislature, to parliament, and political parties that are represented in parliament must have a say. Therefore, the president can't change the law. The only option can be Elon Musk partnering with the already established mobile operators or network operators in South Africa in the satellite space to bring Starlink in South Africa, as he has done in India. Therefore, that's the option. Maybe those are some of the issues that they are discussing, but there is no way Ramaphosa can sign in Washington in that Oval Office or make commitment that I will have a special preferential treatment and arrangement for Elon Musk, because even big business in South Africa are complying. There are many big businesses who have complied with the laws of the country as they relate to the redress, even though some people are uncomfortable. We can see there's always court challenges because people are emboldened after the National Congress lost majority. People are emboldened. They can see, they can push. That is why sometimes you see this contestation in terms of power, because the results last year of the elections communicated a message that there's a window for opportunity for all of us to lead or to be in charge. So what I do know is that at this moment, he is struggling to rebuild the relationship with America because it looks like it's waning. Let's watch what happened in the Congress yesterday in terms of how South Africa has been able to lobby the Congress in terms of some of disinformation and misinformation, like Elon Musk last night. We saw that interview where he's talking about marginalization of Afrikaners. They did that during apartheid, the activists to lobby the congressmen to push back against Reagan when he wanted to veto the apartheid law that was going to impose sanctions on South Africa. Let's take a listen. History repeating itself. Let's watch.
Do you think Afrikaner farmers are the most persecuted group in the world? I think those 49 people that came certainly felt they were persecuted, and they passed every sort of check mark that had to be checked off in terms of meeting the requirements for that. They live in a country where farms are taken and land is taken on a racial basis.
Okay. Do you think they're more persecuted than Uyghurs or Rohingyas, or more persecuted than political dissidents in Cuba or Venezuela or Nicaragua, or more persecuted than those who would be threatened should they be returned to Afghanistan by violence by the Taliban?
Well, the problem we face there is the volume problem, okay? If you look at all the persecuted people of the world, it's millions of people. They can't all come here. And we had refugee programs.
So why
prioritize
Afrikaner farmers?
Well, because it's a small subset, it's a new issue, and the president identified it as a problem and wanted to use it as an example. But that's different from having these refugee programs that were basically spending money to put people up in communities and accommodate them, and it was acting as a magnet. Millions of people in this country illegally, and today the border is sealed.
All right, as you mentioned, history in some ways it feels is repeating itself. The question, of course, is how will this round of events ultimately play themselves out? Sophie Mokoena, thanks very much indeed. SABC News International Editor, help us better contextualize what we're seeing around the US. Closer to home, of course, we'll take you to the budget in just a moment.